So now we're at the last of the four questions. This is the one with the most marks. This one is 16. I haven't actually jotted it down here, forgive me. This one is 16 marks. So it's worth 2/5 of this entire section. Accordingly, you spend the most time on it, so anywhere between 20 and 24 minutes. And this question is all about comparing language use. I can only presume that the term language use is what throws people off, because it should be the easiest one to answer apart from number one. This is where all your analysis skills and everything you've ever been taught about language, rhetorical devices, fact and opinion, the audience is aimed at, this is where this all becomes relevant. This is the language question. The reason I think a lot of people don't do well in it is simply because they're not prepared to answer it in this way. You have to try and think of this as an essay, and we'll come to like how the essay is to be set up for a second, but make sure you have that in mind. Question 4 is more of an essay. The other ones you can answer in 2/3 of a page, you know, just kind of free-flowing paragraphs, but this one has to be an essay where you're focused, or it'll help focus you at least if you do write it as an essay. And this is the one I would practice the most, definitely. So as ever, in this section we're going to look first at the type of questions that were asked. So we're asked to compare, so it's similar and different, the different ways in which language is used for effect. So we're looking at, and language basically means, it's, like I said, it's everything, the rhetorical devices, the phrases, the words itself, etc., the tone, how the language is used for effect. So what does it do? That's all it's asking us. You know, what does it do? What does it give us the feeling of? It's not, there's nothing complex in there. It's just, so the writer's written this and it has this effect on the audience, and the writer's used this and it has this effect on the audience, and the writer's used this and has this effect on the reader, and that's all you want to do. The only addition that you do to that is you do it across the two texts. So if you'll allow me to just paraphrase this again, the writer does this, which makes the reader feel that. This is similar to this in the other source, which also makes the reader feel that, or it makes the reader feel the opposite, or it's used for the opposite reason. So crafting perhaps the response together might be a little harder, but the actual task that you're being asked to do is easier. But the putting it together may be a little bit confusing, and it's definitely the hardest to put together out of the three. But like I said, the actual task that you're being asked to do is very straightforward to you. It's very basic, point, evidence, and explain. So yes, and then the last part is reference to give some examples and analyze what the effects are. So we just want to go into the depth of whatever happens there, but you're naturally going to be doing that at the same time. So what do we have to do here? Well, we have to point out what is similar and different in the language of the texts. So we can pick any of the following points to make, and obviously there's dozens more under this. We could be looking at the language style, you know, whether it's humorous or dramatic or sarcastic or foreboding or warning or selling. We could be looking at whether the work is formal or informal, and if it's similar and different from the two pieces, sorry, the first piece to the second piece. We could be looking at the literary techniques used, so we could be looking at onomatopoeia, simile, rhetorical questions, list of 3, and what they're being used for, who it's aimed at. So the audience is the language more simple because it's aimed at a younger generation? Is it more savvy because it's aimed at the hipsters? Is it more technical because it's aimed at enthusiasts? What is going on? Try and make sure that you get 3 points for each source. So you're going to be writing 3 paragraphs. That's the minimum again. That would give you 6 points because you're going to be comparing them in A, but sorry, contrasting them, should I say, comparing them, A, B. Maybe it could be use of facts and opinions. But there's all the stuff that kind of falls under that banner. When I mention these things, that's the kind of things that you should mention. So in setting up then like an essay, you set yourself up with an introduction for focus. So say text 1 uses blah blah blah. Similarly, text 2 uses blah blah, but it also uses blah, and that's your whole introduction. And that focuses you. The examiner looks at it, knows exactly what you're going to talk about, and then in your paragraphs, then you just expand upon it with the examples and with the explanation, and then if you can, secondary meanings that can be taken or secondary links to it. You just try and make your writing sprawl a little in terms of the exploration that you're going on with your response. So paragraph 1 will just be source A and a PE. I should actually put that there. Source A, PE, and just in case that's point evidence explanation, PE. And then you just do that all the way down. It's not hard because you're picking up the easiest thing. If I was to say anything was hard on this, it would definitely be the one where the inference, because a lot of it's where you can go wrong the most. This one people go wrong because they don't know what to do. With question 3, the inference one, or what's being implied, people answer in 3 different ways. They answer A, how they should answer. They just say what's being inferred. Commonly, they actually think it's the language question, so they just say, for example, if it said, I was worried and I became cold, then they'd suddenly just start analysing cold and saying, the writer has used cold because cold signifies da-da-da-da-da, when they're not. That's not what you're being asked for. You're not being asked to study the language there, you're being asked to study the language here. So just remember that. This is the bread and butter of your English language studies. This is what you've been doing ever since year 7, or probably even earlier, and all these things you know off the top of your head. So just look for them and see where they're similar or different. And remember, you don't have to force something to come out that isn't there. If it's not there, then you just point out differences. So don't worry about it. There's no shame in it. You should try and be like 2 and 1, or if you're doing more points, perhaps 3 points of one point of the other. But there's nothing wrong with just going one side. I doubt you'd get full marks if you go just one side, because it means you haven't seen something. But it should be very easy to compare 2 different texts and actually say how they're at least different, if not the same. And so one of the things that's actually going to get you higher grades in this is comparing the items, like I've mentioned here, in the same paragraph. So you're not just writing all about source 1, then all about source 2. That's a very simplistic way of doing it, and in one of the chief examiner's comments is actually frowned upon that slightly. So it's more of a challenge. It shows more developed, mature, brave writing if you what I call tennising. You go from one to the other, then one to the other, then one to the other. So hopefully that was of some use. And please remember that this is the one you should practice, and this is the one you should get best at, because it's worth the most marks. And like I said before, it's what you've been swallowing since you were young. You've been force-fed all of this for a long time. Now's the time to make it count. Good luck.